A Penniless Pilgrim, written and read by Jeremy Rees. One day in Bristol. Art, history, and organised anarchy. And remarkably, most of it costs nothing at all. Bristol, England's fifth largest city, has a difficult past. It spent 500 years profiting from trading in tobacco, sugar, and slavery, but now trades freely in something far more valuable: reconciliation. It does not try to hide from its history, and indeed openly invites its visitors to learn from it. It is a very open city. Museums are free, the cathedral is free, the street art, whole city blocks of it, the work of living legends, costs nothing but the willingness to look up. By the end of a long summer's day here, spent lurching between wonder and mild moral vertigo, you will have consumed approximately 8 hours of world-class culture without once reaching for your wallet. This, depending on your temperament, will feel either liberating or vaguely wrong. Bristol is used to both reactions. The city sits at the mouth of the River Avon. It operates on an unspoken understanding that the best things in life should be accessible to everyone, particularly if the city's merchant ancestors accrued much of their wealth in ways that now require a great deal of explaining. That explaining, it turns out, is happening all over town. Bristol is working through its past in public, in exhibitions large and small, with an unusual combination of rigour and warmth. The result is a day out unlike any other in Britain. This is an account of a day I spent there in early June. The itinerary takes the form of a walking tour, requiring no tickets, no bookings, and no financial outlay beyond whatever you choose to eat. Comfortable shoes are advised. A certain openness to having your assumptions rearranged is essential. Bristol Museum and Art Gallery, Queen's Road, Clifton. I begin with a dinosaur. The Natural History Collection at Bristol Museum and Art Gallery has one of Britain's finest assemblages of prehistoric bones, and the entrance hall, all Edwardian pomp and soaring ceilings, does not disappoint as a setting. Built in 1905 and given a Baroque facelift, the building is worth a visit before you've seen a single exhibit. Tucked upstairs, in Gallery 2, on the balcony level, just above where a magnificent sea dragon fossil gazes blankly at eternity, is something altogether more unsettling. Tai Shani's The Neon Hieroglyph is a feature-length 57-minute video installation that has been putting visitors into a state of productive bewilderment since it premiered at Manchester International Festival in 2021. Shani, who shared the Turner Prize in 2019, works at the intersection of experimental writing, performance and film, producing what the Academy calls meditations on radical feminist, non-binary utopias. The video wraps around you in the darkened gallery like a fever dream. Whether you stay for the full 57 minutes or simply absorb the first quarter and retreat to the Egyptian collection next door is a matter of stamina. Bristol Cathedral, College Green. A 10-minute walk brings you to College Green and Bristol Cathedral, a magnificent structure, ancient and varied in its architectural styles. Construction began around 1140 as the church of an Augustinian abbey. The nave wasn't completed until the Victorian era, some 700 years later. In between, various abbots, merchants and civic worthies have added their preferred brand of stonework, resulting in a building that is, architecturally speaking, an argument that never quite got resolved. The current exhibition, All God's Children, is developed as part of the cathedral's determined effort to reckon with its historical connections to the transatlantic slave trade. It's one of the most intellectually serious things you'll encounter all day. Research conducted for the exhibition discovered that between the years 1670 and 1900, roughly 1,000 people were buried or memorialised within the cathedral and its grounds, and that approximately 200 of them, 1 in 5, had close connections to the slavery-based economy that made Bristol one of the wealthiest cities in Britain. Signs have been placed beside memorials and grave markers, quietly contextualising monuments to men whose fortunes were built on the suffering of others. Outside on College Green, portraits of those affected by slavery's legacy create a second outdoor component to the exhibition. The very Reverend Dr. Mandy Ford, Dean of Bristol, has described the project as an act of truth-telling. The church, she has argued, ignored, hidden or denied these stories for too long. Walking through the cathedral with this knowledge newly acquired, the ancient stones take on a different weight. Bristol's Central Library, College Green. Across the green and practically next door to the cathedral sits the Central Library, a 1906 Baroque revival building that faces its more famous neighbour with the quiet confidence of a supporting actor who knows that they've been stealing scenes for decades. This month, the first floor exhibition corridor is given over to Lost Places of Bristol, a local history exhibition running through to the 28th of June that explores the buildings, neighbourhoods and landmarks, the time, the Luftwaffe and the enthusiasm of 1960s planners conspired to erase. Bristol was heavily bombed during World War II, and the post-war redevelopment that followed, carried out with the brutalism that affected British town planning throughout the 60s, managed to do almost as much damage as the Blitz. Bristol's street art, Stokes Croft and its environs. Walk north from the city centre and you will notice that the walls have started talking. Stokes Croft, officially a single road, practically a state of mind, is the nerve centre of Bristol's extraordinary street art scene. A neighbourhood where almost every surface is considered, if not exactly fair game, then at least a candidate for transformation. Lonely Planet named Bristol one of its top 50 global destinations for 2026, specifically on account of this. No city in Britain, the guide observed, uses its urban landscape as a canvas, quite like Bristol, with what it describes as some of the best street art anywhere in Europe. The evidence is painted, sprayed and stencilled on walls at head height and 6 stories up, around corners and into alleys, across electricity boxes and the shuttered fronts of businesses that may or may not still be trading. The highlight is Banksy's Mild, Mild West, a teddy bear rendered in the artist's characteristic style, preparing to hurl a petrol bomb at a line of riot police. It has been here since 1999 and shows no sign of leaving. Around it, the neighbourhood's living artists continue to add compositions that would not look out of place in a gallery, except a gallery would likely charge you to see it. The M Shed, Prince's Wharf, Harbourside. Head down to the Harbourside, where a 1950s transit shed, squat, brick, endearingly unglamorous from the outside, houses M Shed. The building sits on Prince's Wharf, beside the floating harbour, the tidal dock that Bristol's engineers tamed between 1804 and 1809 by rerouting the River Avon. Inside, some 3,000 objects tell the story of Bristol through 3 interconnected galleries: Bristol Places, Bristol People, and Bristol Life. The permanent gallery collection is full of surprises, not least a substantial exhibit on the 2020 toppling of the Edward Colston statue, the slaveholder philanthropist whose bronze effigy was pulled from its plinth during a Black Lives Matter protest and deposited in the very harbour he once used to ship human cargo. The statue is now on display here, horizontal and adorned by the graffiti of liberation. Outside, if you time it right, between late May and October, you can ride Britain's only dockside steam railway pulled by a Bristol-built locomotive, or tour the harbour on one of the historic working boats. The Colston exhibit costs nothing extra. The steam railway costs a small fare, the one exception in an otherwise impeccably free afternoon. St. Nicholas Market and the Old City. My tour ends where Bristol's story effectively began, in the Old City, the medieval core that predates everything else in today's itinerary by several hundred years. The street pattern here, the narrow lanes, the sudden courtyards, the alleyways that open unexpectedly onto Georgian grandeur, preserves the footprint of the Saxon settlement that grew in the centuries after the Norman conquest into one of the great trading cities of the Atlantic world. St. Nicholas Market, known with fierce affection as St. Nick's, has been trading on Corn Street since 1743. It's housed in a Georgian arcade of glass and iron, and its approximately 60 stalls offer everything from Ethiopian street food to second-hand books, handmade jewellery to local honey, with the particular anarchic warmth of a market that knows it's embedded in something much older than commerce. On Wednesdays, a farmer's market sets up. On Friday, a street food market. On Fridays and Saturdays, it's the Nails, the arts and craft market named for the 4 ornate brass pillars around the former corn exchange, where merchants once sealed deals by paying cash on the nail. The origin, entomologists tell us, of the phrase itself.
I looked at that.
Standing on Corn Street, the city stretches around you. The Exchange Building, the Georgian banks, the medieval church of St. Nicholas, just visible at the end of the street. It all suggests a city that has been at the centre of something consequential for a very long time, and knows it, and is now carefully doing the work of understanding what exactly that something was. Total cost of the day? Nothing, unless you ate something at St. Nick's, in which case blame the coffee with raisin and blueberry flapjack. It was worth it. So, if you go, Bristol Museum in Queen's Road, Clifton, has free admission. The neon hieroglyph runs through until June the 28th. You will find Bristol Cathedral in College Green, free entry, donation welcomed. All God's Children is on permanent display during opening hours. Central Library is also on College Green. It's free. The Lost Places of Bristol runs until the 28th of June, Monday to Saturdays from 9:30. The art. In and around Stokes Croft you can find if you head north on the city centre on Stokes Croft Road. Of course, the art is always open. The M Shed on Prince's Wharf is a free museum. Steam, railway and boat trips charge a small fee. Check bristolmuseums.org.uk for seasonal schedules. St. Nick's Market on Corn Street in the Old City, indoor market Monday to Saturday 9:30 till 5, with outdoor markets on Wednesdays, Fridays and Saturdays. And getting there, well, if you're coming by bus, Bristol bus station in Marlborough Street is just north-east of the city centre, about a 5 or 7 minute walk from Bristol Museum. Head down through Broadmead and it's very straightforward on foot. Bristol Templemead's railway station is a 20-minute walk from College Green or a short bus ride. All the stops on the itinerary are within comfortable walking distance of each other.